Good evening and welcome to Prime Business with me, Emma Davis. A look at our stories for tonight. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, has disclosed that the recent upward review adjustment at the pumps is only a precursor for tougher times ahead as consumers will face an increase since oil-producing countries begin to meet this week to cut down production in the coming days. According to the Executive Secretary, Duncan Amoah, the situation will get worse for consumers if the cedi continue to depreciate.
Pius, interestingly, there's a lot of anticipation for an OPEC meeting this week and further cuts in production numbers expected to be announced. And as I speak with you, the past 3 days have seen prices rise on the international market. If that trend should continue and the cedi also continues to remain around the 14, 15, 16 Ghana region, together with what we have added on UPPF, we simply will be looking for trouble as a people, especially now that gold for oil is also not impacting much. Bank of Ghana is reporting a certain 2.3 billion Ghana cedi that we have pumped in there, meaning that we probably have thrown that money also into a gold for oil program. And so whatever buffers that you and I could have had to save us from increases at the local pumps relative to increases on the international market, there seem to be none at the moment. Rather, we are increasing margins, and that for us is worrying and should be, reversed if possible.
The head of survey at the Institute of Economic Affairs, Samuel Menu, has described the recent tariff increment by the Public Utility and Regulatory Commission as insensitive. According to him, the utility provider has failed to provide efficient and sustainable supply of power to businesses and households, which have negatively impacted their profitability. He spoke during a press conference in Accra.
Recent months have seen a worrying rise in power outages across Ghana. This prompted the Institute of Economic Affairs to conduct a survey gauging the experiences of businesses and households following the president's declaration that the Dumso crisis was over. However, head of survey at the IEA suggests the problem still persists.
An average of 4 outages in a week, which lasts for 7 or more hours for most people, cannot be attributed to mere faulty transformers, as claimed by the utility managers. It surely has elements of low electricity production and supply. Therefore, we conclude that Dumso persisted even after the president made the bold declaration that Dumso was over and would never return. The president's declaration, which has turned out not to be true, sets another bad precedent and will make it difficult for businesses and households to trust official information on the power crisis in Ghana.
The survey revealed a significant impact, particularly in the Greater Accra region.
About 64.5% of respondents indicated that the effect of power outages in the year 2024 include damage to their electrical appliances or financial losses to their businesses or both. With this, we conclude that Dumso has brought untold hardship to most of the people in the Greater Accra region. Financial losses referred to in this survey include damaged goods and lost revenue due to outages.
Mr. Menu further questioned the effectiveness of the recent electricity tariff adjustment.
As for the story of we are paying less tariffs, I heard it in my mother's room. Ghana we have never paid enough tariff, but there is always increase in the tariff. So what is enough tariff? They should tell us. And what tariff rate should we pay for ECD to be sustainable? We've never heard that. Whether we should pay 10,000, 200, 500, they should tell us. They know how far we are from that tariff rate. Let's describe that as insensitive. in the situation we find ourselves.
The survey further found that 49% of respondents are unsure when the power crisis might end, with another 6.7% fearing it may be a permanent issue. This highlights a sense of hopelessness or uncertainty surrounding Ghana's power sector.
The National Pensions Regulatory Authority has assured it will work to ensure that workers' interests are protected in any move by SSNIT to dispose its stake in some hotels. This is coming after organized labor began fresh engagements with Minister of Pensions over the opposition for the State's Pension Trust, SSNIT, to sell some of these hotels. John Kwene Mbro is Chief Executive of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority and has been speaking on a PM Express Business Edition, which is yet to air this Thursday at 9 p.m.
I can give you that 100% assurance that, look, it's your money, my money. That's one. Two, we want to ensure that it's value for money, there's transparency, okay? And there's good judgment in all this. So basically, these are the key, points on which we actually evaluate this whatever is ongoing there. So we are going to ensure that, I mean, all actors in that, we have to review, we have to know where we stand in that, and then the assessments, the processes as well, and then value for money. And I keep saying that it's your money, my money, and that is what we can do for our country and our people. So we can assure you that, yes, serious engagement will continue on this, and we'll come up with something that will kneel to the Ghanaian worker and our country. So that is what it is.
Yesterday we spoke to the organized labor on radio as well, and they talked about some meetings that will take place today and all the rest. I mean, how are these engagements going to ensure that all these parties, because organized labor, for instance, are saying that we don't want SSNIT to go out to disinvest their interest. But again, from the regulator's perspective, you also want to ensure that, listen, what can be done to sustain the scheme as well?
Okay, so yes, I'm part of that meeting, and in due course, I'll have to join. We are all part, working in a collaborative manner for the good of the scheme. We have one cardinal thing to make SSNIT financially sustainable. The SSNIT scheme, the Basic National Social Security Scheme, that's the name of the scheme. The trustee, the trust company is the SSNIT. All we seek to do is to ensure that as regulators, the ministry, the regulator, and then also all actors, we play our roles in a manner that we lend support, in a manner that would make sure that the scheme itself is financially sustainable.
Now, Registrar of Companies, Jemima Awari, is advising companies to check from the office's website when getting into business with organizations as the ORC embarks on an exercise to remove about 8,000 companies that failed to file their annual returns by 1st July.
Voluntarily, about 482 companies have written to us that we should take their names off the register. And only 3,367 have filed up to date. So we have companies that have not filed, over 6,885. That is for companies limited by shares, both public and private. Then we come to guarantee companies, that is churches and organizations and clubs. We published over 2,927 of them, and up to date, only 11 have volunteered to strike off, and 911 have also come to file. So I have about 2,000 churches and clubs and associations that have not also filed returns and renewed. That's what I'm talking of, over 8,895 of such companies. I'm giving them up to the end of June. By 1st July, we'll take their names off the register. Per Section 2895 of the Companies Act, once your name is taken off the register, you are not to do business with anybody for the next 12 years until you go to court, and it's at the discretion of the court that will direct us to reinstate you on the register. So my advice to businesses, if you want to do any business with anybody in this country, please check from our website, www.orc.gov.gh. So my advice to all businesses is, before you sign on any contract with any company or business name, check from our website, www.orc.gov.gh, whether such a company's name has been taken off the register or whether they are in good standing. You can always find that one out from our website.
Very
well. I do not desire to take names and businesses. My prayer is that they will all try and renew before the 1st of July.
Head of Enterprise Banking at Stanbic Bank Ghana, Eric Chiri, has underscored the adoption of the Universal Trusted Credentials in advancing the growth and development of micro, small and medium-sized enterprises in Ghana to access cheap loans. According to him, this will enable banks easily access records and authenticate the eligibility of SMEs for funding. He spoke in an interview with Joy Business.
Access to affordable finance remains a significant hurdle for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises globally, stifling their potential for growth and hindering economic development in countries that depend on these businesses. Eric Chiri, the head of enterprise banking at Stanbic Bank Ghana, believes that adopting universal trusted credentials will bridge the financing gap for underserved MSMEs.
Under the sponsorship of the Central Banks of Ghana and Singapore, and the Development Bank of Ghana, there is some conversation ongoing. They are developing what they call the UTC, which are trusted, universally accepted, trusted credentials, where we SMEs are being assessed from an ability to pay and an intent to pay perspective. And models, credentials are being built such that, SME, there will be a single source of truth in terms of trusted credentials that lenders can rely on, trade partners can rely on, people providing suppliers credits can rely on to authenticate and validate which SME they are dealing with. And we must commend government and other players across various sectors for some of the initiatives that these UTCs are building on as a backbone. So in Ghana, we are talking about our national identification, our addressing system and those things. And all these things are being pulled into a platform that allows you to be able to, at a click of a button, be able to authenticate an SME as being good for business. And for banks, once those basic KYC requirements are being done, and we are developing those weights that we want to place on certain attributes of SMEs, it gives us the comfort to be able to lend into this sector much more than we currently are, because that is truly our desire as financial institutions in this country.
This represents a significant shift from traditional collateral-based lending, which relies on hard assets, board resolutions, 3-year profitability records, long-term business contracts, and other collateral metrics that businesses must present before receiving financing and financial services.
ECOWAS Residential Representative to Ghana, Ambassador Baba Gana Wakil, has called for concerted efforts to help the youth wean themselves off the unemployment market by acquiring digital skills. According to him, the days of relying on government for employment are over. He was speaking at a 10-day ICT training for some individuals. Here's more.
The training program sponsored by the ECOWAS Commission in Ghana is to help participants acquire skills in web and mobile app design. According to the Residential Representative Commission, Ambassador Baba Gana Wakil, this has become necessary due to the growing population in the sub-region and government's inability to provide jobs for a greater part of its able workforce.
Government can only provide the enabling environment. Our population is growing, business is growing, it is going digital. Once you acquire this skill, you don't have to rely on government. You can create your own businesses. You can create your own businesses. With your colleagues and friends, you can come together and open shop. Just like the people who sell sportswear, you can actually open a digital shop. So this is why we are now focusing on this. And the other reason is that youth unemployment has also been a very, very big factor in the increase in transnational crimes, increase in drug addiction, and a host of other increase in terrorism, because our unemployed youth just find themselves as a fertile ground for recruitment by terrorists. by human traffickers, by drug traffickers.
Ambassador Wakil also emphasized the costly nature of the unemployment menace to the sub-region.
The productive component of our demographics, of our population, is engaged in drugs as a result of youth unemployment. And this is why the training that we are doing here this morning becomes relevant. It teaches part of the youth population in our sub-region, in Ghana and in all the other 14 member states, how youth can develop the skills to be able to create their own jobs without relying on government jobs all the time. Once the youth are engaged in something that they could do for themselves, then the tendency to drift towards drugs and trafficking and all those other transnational crimes is greatly reduced.
Some beneficiaries of the training shared their expectations.
Looking at the rapid change of the global economy, I think, like the ambassador said, technology is now the cutting edge. And so we, the youth, has a role to play. We want to be part of the drive in global development. And so this is a great opportunity for us to all be on board. I thought the things that I look forward to now is that to know how exactly to hold and how to develop the software as well. COVID-19 told us a lot of things, made us realize that we can be in our comfort of our homes and do a lot of things. So I think we should have much knowledge so I can impact globally what's even happening.
The training will see some 200 youth acquire skills in full stack development and cable television installation.
Stakeholders in the supply chain industry have cited the lack of trust between academia and industry as a major hindrance to the development of an effective supply chain network in Africa. Addressing the media at the ongoing 4th Center for Applied Research and Innovation in Supply Chain Africa, CARISCA, Supply Chain Research Summit, Director and Research Component Co-Lead, Professor Nathaniel Bosso called for effective collaborations with industry and academia to ensure an effective supply chain system which can boost cross-border trade in Africa.
Center for Applied Research and Innovation in Supply Chain Africa, CARISCA's 4th Annual Supply Chain Research Summit being held in Accra, aims at exposing Africa's supply chain researchers to global standards by connecting them to global platforms in the sector. It also hopes to build capacity of African researchers to forge sustainable partnerships with industry. The summit is hosting over 150 presentations with a congregation of more than 500 researchers from across the world. Speaking to Joy Business, Professor Nathaniel Bosso, Director and Research Component Co-Lead at CARISCA, cited the lack of trust between academia and industry as a limitation to the development of the sector.
There is currently disconnection, right, between academia and industry. And that disconnection, I think, comes from lack of trust of industry for academia. So you go to industry, you hear comments like, oh, the things that we do in academia are theory. It doesn't really make sense to industry. Then you come to academia, you talk about this issue, they will say, oh, the industry people are not willing to share data, information with academia. Therefore, how do we understand you if you don't share data? So you see the cycle of problem that is going on here.
Executive Director Professor Dale Rogers outlined the role of CARISCA in bridging the knowledge gap.
The talent of the people here is second to none because of how difficult and how resource poor African universities are. The African universities tend to be, in general, a little bit behind American and European universities, but I think there's a real opportunity to continue to improve. And you know, since we started Cariska, the purpose of this summit is to bring top scholars from around the world to help teach young African scholars how to do research, how to publish.
Here is Lydia Kiburu, Group Director for Business Transformation at Equity Holdings, on how technology can be leveraged for an effective supply chain system.
Resilience. We need to look at the resilience, and some of the drivers of these gaps include our infrastructure. We need to look at building our infrastructure, improving it so that we can remain interconnected. Another one is how we integrate technology and close the digital divide. Some of our markets, we see that we have resources, but we do not have the capability to add value.
The theme for the 3-day summit is Africa's supply chain resilience for economic transformation.
Agriculture is supposed to be the backbone of Ghana's economy, but its main stakeholders, farmers, continue to lose out on its hefty financial benefits. This is largely attributed to inadequate financial support and resources to upskill their production capacity and the lack of technical know-how to modernize farming. Smallholder farmers in the Ejisu municipality of the Ashanti region have been introduced to bio-based agricultural innovations to diversify their farming operations while providing accessibility to credit facility to boost their income streams. There's more in this report.
It's a bit challenging because, you know, accumulating your own money to be used in your business is challenging. So we need the banks to help us. But sometimes the interest rate is so huge that maybe by the time you even finish repaying the loan, you don't even get anything out of the business. So it's like you are working for the banks.
Sheitu Mahama Zule, an aquaculture farmer at Ejisu, is one of thousands of farmers across Ghana who struggle to access credit facilities. In Ghana, many traditional credit providers like banks and microfinance institutions are wary of extending credit to small-scale farmers, fearful of associated risks. The limited accessibility to formal credit forces many farmers to depend on costly informal loans. Kidisel Kwame Inwin is a credit officer at Amanting and Kase Community Bank Limited.
Some of the farmers, when they take the loan facilities, they tend to run away, divert the funds, do other things with it because they think that they have gotten money from the government. That is most of them, their mindset. And you know, their mindset is that if the money is coming from the government, then you don't pay back. So when that happens and we begin to chase them, we trace them for the facility, for the loans that you have given them, then the people around them will begin to think that when you take a loan from the bank, they will chase you. So basically, they will not go. And
in 2021, a 4-year project on revenue diversification pathways in Africa through bio-based and circular agriculture innovations was launched with funding from the European Union. The project aims at increasing productivity, exploring income streams and economic opportunities of subsistence and smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa to implement state-of-the-art bio-based innovation. Dr. Ernest Befi is Deputy Director of the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research.
Having the government having a policy of modernizing agriculture in Ghana, the simplest understanding of it is farmers now beginning to understand that we are moving away from farming to feed yourself and your family to farming to earn income to sustain your family's livelihood.
Divagri would enable diversification of crops and increase value addition, create environmental, social and economic sustainabilities. Project lead Dr. Shedra Kujuamponsa highlights some bio-based technologies to diversify agricultural production.
We have the biogas. Now what we've been able to do here is to introduce a mobile or portable biogas digester where farmers can actually digest their organic waste on the farm and be able to generate some energy for cooking. Also, we have the black soldier fly larvae production setup that we've introduced farmers to, and so far we've been able to test different substrates for the BSF to see how well it affects the production rate and all that.
Senior research scientist under the project, Dr. Natson Aram Amengo, assures of prospective benefits from the project.
After all this, there has to be funding. Otherwise, when the project ends, it means the idea dies. So today's event is to bring together potential funders of these technologies, a place where farmers can go to get funding for these technologies so that they can implement them in their field.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
That's it for tonight's bulletin. I am Emma Davis. Thank you very much for your company. For more business news, do log on to myjoyonline.com. Have a good evening. Up next is Prime Sports. Please